Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I want to look at MetaBox views. WordPress natively supports custom fields and the ability to create custom post types, but WordPress doesn't by default provide any way to show them on the front of the site. There are a large number of third-party options to solve this. This series on custom post types and theme builders has looked at a number of these solutions, and this tutorial looks at MetaBox views. In part 9 of the series, we looked at how to create a custom post type using MetaBox. Now we turn to MetaBox views, the MetaBox extension for creating content templates for custom post types. I set up a test site with the free Cadence theme. And here are the installed plugins. MetaBox is the core framework plugin that all the MetaBox extensions rely on. The MetaBox core plugin doesn't have any user interface. This is the MetaBox all-in-one extension that comes with some of the premium versions of MetaBox. MetaBox all-in-one allows access to all of the MetaBox extensions. I have WP Reset Pro and WP Vivid here for resetting the site between testing sessions. This is the MetaBox website, and in the previous tutorial in this series, I showed how to install MetaBox, the MetaBox all-in-one plugin, how to create a custom post type. So we're continuing on from there. And now we're using the MetaBox extension called MetaBox Views. MetaBox Views is the MetaBox solution for how to show your custom post type and custom fields on the front end of your website. You can see here that they have a description that says with MetaBox Views you can just select fields you want to show, fill in some parameters, and done. That makes it sound very easy. We'll see what's really involved as we step through the process in the tutorial. Before we leave the MetaBox website, I want to show you that they do have some documentations and videos for MetaBox views. So MetaBox has pretty decent documentation if you need it. Now back to the test site. I used MetaBox to create a custom post type called Books. I added some books, and as you can see, each book has 3 custom fields: the book author, the author's image, and a link to the author's website. However, when we look at the archive for books, the default archive that Cadence gives us, this is the best we can do. This side doesn't look bad, but the featured image is really huge. And if we look at individual books, wow, this is kind of overwhelming. And we see the standard post fields, the title, the post meta, the content, and comments area. But again, we don't see any of our custom fields. So to fix the templates and show the custom fields, we're going to need to do some theming. You access MetaBox views here from the MetaBox menu in the admin. Here's views. And you start by creating a new one. And this is the interface that you're going to use for creating the views. You give the view a name. Then here's an editor area for the template itself, the HTML. Here's an editor for the CSS. And here's the editor for JavaScript. Then over here is where they have a list of all of the fields that you can insert into your template. They're the post fields, the taxonomy fields, the user fields, the current logged in user or the post author, site fields, query fields, and these are used when creating the archive or you're looping over the results, and then the views area. So if you've created other views, you can insert them into a new view to nest them. So this is pretty powerful here. Then there's the option to save your draft or publish. Now here it says that it uses Twig, and there's a link to the Twig documentation, and that you can run a PHP function using this mb dot syntax. And this is a MetaBox proxy to the WordPress functions. So this is another powerful feature of MetaBox views that you can use. You have access to any of the WordPress functions, and WordPress has a lot of them. Now here's where you choose your settings for the view to say what the view is for. You have the options for the singular or archive, or a hook, custom for short code, or code. So for our book single, we want singular. And then you add rules to say what it applies to. So it is for singulars for books. Okay, and then if you needed to add more rules, you could here. And then you have the option to replace the entire page, including the header and footer, the layout between the header and footer, or only the post content area. So I'm going to choose only post content area. And I'm doing that rather than replacing the whole page or everything in between the header and footer, because I want to leverage the Cadence theme as much as possible. I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to do more than I need to. And if we do only the content area, for instance, then we could have a sidebar using the theme sidebar. So I'm going for this. And then we have an option of where we want to put it. Before the post content, after the post content, or to replace the post content, which is what I'm going to choose. And then you have order and name, which you would use if you're using multiple views together. And that doesn't apply here, so I'm going to just leave that as it is. So I'm going to publish this to save it. And I think what I'll do here is I'll insert a field, just the post title. And you see when you insert fields, it puts it in these double curly braces, and that's a twig syntax. So actually in doing this, I really didn't need to use twig much, but I'm just mentioning that. Now I like to build things up step by step, so I'm going to update this, and then I'm going to go to the front end of the site, and we're working on single book, so let's see what one looks like. Didn't take away our featured image, the title, the meta, or the comments, but look, the content is gone, and all that's left here is the title, which is what we have in our view. So this actually makes sense because we told MetaBox views that we just wanted to replace the content area. Now, fortunately, Cadence and many other themes, good themes, have a lot of customizing options. And so I'm going to go into the customizer, and Cadence has a really cool feature. They let you customize the individual layout and the archive for custom post types. Unfortunately, they don't have an option to put the featured image next to the content. This was kind of the best I could do without altering the aspect ratio of the featured image. So I'm going to go here now, and I'm going to start turning stuff off. I'm turning off the title, and that got rid of the title in post meta. I'm going to turn off the featured image, and then you have an option to turn off comments also. And MetaBox has an option in the insert fields that would insert it back, but I don't really see any reason to do that. So I'm just going to leave this on for now and publish this. And then let's go out of this now. Okay, so here's our book single so far. At this point, I'm going to start building up this view step by step, adding the HTML and CSS till I get something I'm happy with. But I want to tell you, this process took a few hours, and what I'm showing you here in the video is kind of the final result. You know, I've kind of reverse engineered the final result to show you the steps I went through. So I'm not really showing you everything I went through. A lot of places I stopped, I looked at the documentation, I Googled for WordPress functions and whatnot, looked up stuff about CSS Grid. So I'm just putting it out there so you don't think that I know everything and I just snapped my fingers and this all came together. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to put the featured image on the left and the content on the right, have a 2-column layout for the book single. So what I did, since I want to use the theme as much as possible, is I went to the Cadence user forums and I searched for Grid to find out how the theme is creating its columns. Is it using Bootstrap? Is it using Foundation? How are they doing it? And so what I found here is that the developer is answering a question that someone else asked. He tells them they're just using CSS Grid. Okay, so now I know what to use. I'm not going to use Bootstrap or something like that. So I go back to my single template now, and I put together some HTML for the grid columns, the left and right grid columns. Now, the way that CSS Grid works is you declare the outer container div as your grid container, and then the inner divs become your columns. And I put an inline style here for background colors, just so we can see that it's working. Alright, so now I'm going to add the CSS here. See, this outer div is DCM book single is the class. For that class, I'm saying it's a grid, background color white. So I'm going to hit update, and let's go take a look and see if anything's changed. Good, here are our left and right columns. They are stacked, they're not left and right, because we have to add some CSS, some code to say that we want them to be columns. But we do want them to be stacked on mobile. So by default, we want them stacked on mobile, but if we have tablet or desktop, then we want them to be in columns. Next question is, what are the theme breakpoints? So again, I return to the Cadence forum, and I found a question, my own question I asked back in June. What are the Cadence breakpoints? So below 768 is mobile. Okay, so I put together some CSS now to turn these into columns. So here I'm saying if it's below 769, this container is a grid template and has two columns. First column is 20% of the content, and the second is 80%. So save that, go back and look, and here we have our two columns. Excellent. So things are going how we want. Next step, I guess, is to add the featured image. So I'm going to delete that, and now insert a field. We have post thumbnail, and I want the medium large, and I want an image tag. You have other options for different parts of the image information, but I'm going for image tag here. I put that in, and we see it's going to fill in the alt text, and it fills in the width and height information. Let's save this and go see what we've got. Excellent. Let's start with the post title. I'll do an H1. And now let's insert the post title. So that's good. And now let's try inserting the post content. And let's save that and see what we've got. Okay, so this is going fairly quickly. The next thing is to add the post meta in here. So let's see, span, I'll say by, and then I want the author display name, user display name. So I think it should say author display name here, but anyway. Okay, and then we'll do a divider, and we'll say on, and we'll want the post date from WordPress settings. That looks good. Alright, so we have by, author, on, and now we want to say comments and show the number of comments. So we have here, this actually inserts the whole comment area, not the number of comments. We don't have that under term, user, site, query, or view. So I did some Googling, and I used this MetaBox proxy to call a WordPress function to get the number of comments. So I'll paste that in. Okay, get comments number. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and let's go check now. Good, we've got our post meta. Now normally on themes, like if we go to look at a page that the theme created, this is actually a link to the author archive. If you have comment links here, then that's a link to the comment area down below. And so if I was being real conscientious here, I would turn these into links. to do that, but that's a kind of more work, and I have a shortcut I'm going to show you later, so I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So now I want to add the custom fields below the featured image. So that's going to be in this column. And the first thing I want to output are the categories. The books have a genre category. So that I can style and center those, I'm going to put it in a div. And now then we want to output the list of categories. So if I look at insert fields, we do term name, and now let's hit save, refresh. Nothing there, so I don't think term name was the right thing. Let's go to terms, and we'll do term name here. Same thing, so that's not going to do it for me. So again, I Googled and found a WordPress function that will do this for me, and I use this MetaBox proxy. So get the term list, and it outputs the list, and you can specify, how you divide them, the delimiter. I'm dividing them with a comma here. Okay, so now let's update that and take a look. Good, historical fiction, so the genre is there. Now I want to output the author's photo, so I'm going to go to insert field, and we have author's image. The thumbnail is fine. They are square images. I want to output the image tag. So now we have something interesting. MetaBox puts this in a for loop. This is twig syntax. And that's because it allows you to actually add more than one image when you add an image field. And so if there were more than one image, it would output more. I'm just going to indent that. Let's save that and take a look. There's the author's image. Okay, and now we want to create a button to take the user to the author's website. So I'm going to add link to author's website. Actually, I know this is going to be an anchor tag, so I'm going to add that. And then I'm just going to guess, because it's a pretty good guess, that the theme has a class of button. And then I'm going to go visit. And we're going to put in the author's name, website. Okay, I'm going to save that. If the class wasn't button, if Cadence had a different class, then I'd again need to go to the website and search for that, or ask in their support forums to find out what the class is. Alright, so now we have everything output here, and we just need to do some styling to make it look nice. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to add a div around this. So here's that anchor tag, but I put a div around it so that I can say button div, so I can style that. And we already have a class for the categories. So I modified the CSS, and this is what I came up with. So inner wrap, that's actually the theme container around the content. And I noticed that on the site, see how it's got this very, very light blue color? So I matched that. Then here's what we had before for the outer div. And then I added some padding for the second div. For this div, I added some padding for it. And then I centered the author's photo. I centered the categories. I centered the button. I centered the text on the button, inside the button. And then if it's on tablet or desktop, I added some padding to the top of the featured image. So now I'm going to save that. And if I've done everything okay, then the output should be good. And here's the final result, and so that all looks good. Alright, so before we continue on, there are a couple things I just wanted to show you, point out here, and those are having to do with the editor. See how when I've highlighted one div, it highlights the matching div? So that's a nice feature of the editor. So the matching tags are nice. But one thing I noticed is that the clipboard is cleared when you do update. And maybe that's not a big deal really, except that as you're building things up step by step, you try something, you try say a little CSS code, and then you go to the front end and you hit refresh and you say, oh, that didn't work, I want to undo that change. Well, because you had to save it in order to preview it, that clipboard ability to go back is lost. Anyway, it's kind of a minor thing, but I wanted to point that out, that the editor was sometimes a little bit difficult in that regard. Okay, so anyway, this is the book single. So next we go on to creating the archive. Okay, so I go add new. This time we'll have book archive. And down here we'll say archive. Not a rule, and I'll say book archive. I don't want it to be the whole page. We have the option then between layout between header and footer or only the post content area. And this time I decided to go for the layout between header and footer. Kind of show you what that would look like and kind of show you what I was thinking in this case. So I'm going to publish it. Again, kind of trying to build things up step by step. I'm going to insert field and then go to query. And this is what the documentation says to use for your archives. So I'm just going to put the post title in here. And I'll save that. And let's go to the front end and look at our book archive. Okay, there are all the titles and everything's right here against the header. And I had the thought to look at the page source. So if I go down here, so here's the header right there going up, and then here's the footer right here going down. Well, I know that Cadence has, and many modern themes have, some content areas that are used for different things. So what I did is I changed it to be a draft, and I went back and updated this again, and this time when I looked at the page source, I went down and found, and these things that start article, then there's another one that starts there. Those are the rows with the book in each row. Here are the content classes and divs that the Cadence theme is using. And then if you go down to the bottom, you see now here's the footer, and there are a few divs after the last article, after the last row. I decided I wanted to preserve those, and so what I did is I copied all this out into my text editor, and I just left one article row and got rid of the header and footer. Anyway, what I did is I put this on the bottom, and then I went and copied this out and put this above, and I took a modified version of the article element to try to kind of recreate what we have going there. Now, what I saw here is that Cadence has this here for the way where it's declaring its grid columns, but I'm going to do it. But since I'm going to do this a little differently, I modified this div, got rid of this, and just kept the content wrap class. So save that. Let's go look and see what this looks like now. Okay, so now I have the rows stacked because each one is an article element. So what I'm showing you here, again, this kind of end point is what I came to after a lot of trial and error. I know it's not as helpful when you have somebody just paste in a bunch of code, but you know, it took me several hours to create the book archive, and I'm sure you don't want to watch that whole process. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to add my divs in here for the two columns. There's one, and here's the other one. Okay, we'll say left and right. Then we'll add our CSS. Okay, so we'll add our class here to declare the grid, DCM book archive, and we'll add that here as well. Okay, let's update that. Go and take a look. So we have now our columns, and now we need to do the same trick. Add in the media query. Okay, and update that. Now let's go refresh. Okay, so now we have our two columns. So we're making progress. Okay, so let's start adding the content. So here I want to add the featured image. And here again we're going to do the medium large, and we want an image tag. Let's save that and go take a look. Okay, so that's fine. We notice that the images are, by default slightly different sizes, so we're going to need to add some CSS to size those. And also in your archives, usually the image is a link. You can click on it. So we're going to need to change this to make it a link. So I changed this into an anchor tag with the post URL, which is this field here. And then I gave this a class so that I can size and style the images. Got a typo there. Let's add a little bit of CSS in for our image. And let's save. Go take a look and see what we've got. Okay, so now we're looking a little bit better. Let's go ahead and see if we can size those images a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to add some CSS here. I'm going to center the image, say it's 80% of the width, and the height is auto. See what we get now. Okay, and it's centered, and our images are all the same size now. So that's progress. For the part on the right, I took a shortcut. And so what I did is I copied the article part out from here, and I pasted it in there. Well, you can see that is like a mess. But then what I started doing is I went through and I substituted out where it was static text and put in the variables. Here's the link to the post URL. Alright, so you get the idea. You see what I'm doing there. So like here is the author name in the database. Alright, the date. Okay, so I'm going through and doing that for all of these. Link here, you see this comes with a link to the comments. So then I added the comments number here, which we already did in the single version. And then when I tried to do the excerpt from here, we have post excerpt. Okay, so let's just look at it so far. And the excerpt didn't show up. But you can see, look, I've got a link here and link to the comments, so that's good. So for the excerpt, I had to go use this MetaBox proxy and a WordPress function. So get the excerpt. Alright, so I went through and I did the date format, the date, time, and everything. Okay, so you get the idea on this. And so now I'm just going to paste in kind of the finished result. Everything between the article tag, all of the article, everything between the loop, I'm going to delete and paste in the finished result. Okay. And then I'm going to add the CSS that I added. And then after the loop, I added a spacer div so I can have space between the rows. In my CSS, I added something to make that very light blue. Okay, so let's update this. And here's the final result. And see, I have links here, and it looks pretty good. So for discussion and conclusions, one thing that became instantly clear was that marketing blurb on the MetaBox website about views, where with MetaBox views you can just select fields you want to show, fill in some parameters, and done. That shouldn't be relied upon when planning how long it's going to take you to create your views. This is true at least for the first few times when you go through the process. To create the single and the archive took the better part of a day. I imagine once I had done it a few times, I would build up a library of code that I could use on new projects and it would go quicker. But that's something to keep in mind. This is very developer focused. When I created the archive, I took that shortcut and copied in the HTML from the Cadence Themes version of the archive loop. That turned out to be a good job, even though it was a little daunting, especially because for the post meta it inherited the styles, and the author and comment meta had the links to the author's archive and the comment area. If I had done something like that for the single template, it would have picked up those styles and links as well. In terms of the code editor, I guess it was better than Notepad, but at times it was a bit painful, especially because the editor clipboard is lost when you save. Because what I was doing is I was experimenting, I would try something, I would save, I'd switch to the front end to see what it looked like, and if I didn't like it, I'd want to go back and put back what I had had before, and that wasn't possible. I'd have to try to remember, so that was kind of a bit of a pain. If you have two monitors, I recommend putting the page with the preview on one monitor and the editor on the other, and that would make it go a little faster. In terms of the editor, on the plus side, the opening and closing tag matching worked well, so that was a nice feature. The panel with the fields, where you could pick your fields and they would be inserted, that was helpful. And the ability to use the MetaBox proxy syntax is very powerful. I didn't really have to get into Twig that much. I've used it before and I'm generally a fan. Having the CSS and JavaScript tabs is a plus because then your styles and JavaScript code are only loaded when that template is used, which is a nice convenience. Now, I didn't see a way to queue a style sheet or a JavaScript file or load other resources within the Views editor, so that might be a nice enhancement for the future. I didn't show adding a custom field on the archive, but doing so would be the same process, just clicking on a custom field from that fields panel and going in. It'd be really trivial to do and very easy. So that's powerful if you want to include custom fields in your archive. Overall, my conclusion is that MetaBox Views is a developer or power user tool. If you're used to the Elementor theme builder or Beaver Themer or Oxygen or some of the other theme builders out there, then using the MetaBox Views editor is a little bit painful. However, if you put performance and code optimization first, then you might not mind the process. Because it's all very lightweight, it's very powerful. It's a step up from creating PHP theme templates, but in the end it's a similar experience. So this is my walkthrough and review of MetaBox Views. There's a text version of the video available on the WebTNG website along with other tutorials and reviews and resources. I hope you found this video interesting. Thank you for watching.